So in a little bit, we're going to ask you guys to think about how you can help everybody here grow their own business. But first, we want to give a special thank you to our friends at the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce for all that they do to expand businesses in our region and beyond, as well as to our friends at the Little Rock Tech Park. This is their beautiful new space. If you haven't had a chance to check out the rest of the building yet, I encourage you to stop by Brent Birch, the director's office, and ask him for a tour before you head out today. It's really a fantastic space. The Wi-Fi is provided for Venture Center members by our friends at Broadband Development Group. Broadband Development Group's CEO, Lou, is actually our entrepreneur in residence here at the Venture Center, and we love sharing the 1 gig up and down Wi-Fi with our members. If you are not yet a Venture Center member, we'll let you get on the Tech Park's Wi-Fi today, but next week, after you become a member, you can hop onto the Screamin' Fast one. So quick question, what do entrepreneurs really need to be successful? Gin. It is 9 a.m., but why not? You know, sometimes you need a little oomph. I'm not, maybe entrepreneurs drink. I don't know. What else do entrepreneurs need to be successful? That's right, connections, right? And so today, we're specifically going to ask you to help make some connections with our presenter, Nisha. She's looking to meet employers, community leaders, and volunteers, right? So maybe you are actually the connection that you're going to make to Nisha today as she shares the vision of Good Grid and tells you guys about what is happening with her awesome organization. So while you're on the Wi-Fi today and sharing the love, we love to see pictures on social media. We always use the hashtag #LiftTheRock. You can find the Venture Center on Twitter at Venture Center, and you can find the Good Grid today at The Good Grid. As an aside, I really love when people use easy to remember Twitter handles as opposed to like Bob427. This makes it so much easier. So you're going to take a picture while Nisha's presenting or right now or whenever, and you're going to post it on social media and you're going to use the hashtag #LiftTheRock. So with no further ado, we are going to welcome the founder and CEO of the Good Grid, Nisha, up to the front. We're going to put a lot of energy in the room. Excellent. Is your mic green? Yes. Okay, you're good to go.
Okay. Is this the clicker? That's the clicker. She was just got it. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Nisha, and I work at ProTech Solutions, which is right down the street. It's 2 buildings down there. And what ProTech does is it builds case management solutions for government agencies. So our clients are government agencies, and what that means is when you go into an office and you're applying for child support or applying for food stamps, the system that the caseworker uses was built by ProTech Solutions. And because we do case management for profit, we also wanted to do case management for nonprofit, and that's where Good Grid was created. So a little bit about ProTech. We are headquartered in Arkansas, right down there. We do a lot of different government systems, TANF, food stamps, child support, Medicaid, but our bread and butter is child support, and we do that all across the nation. We also do international child support with the Hague Convention. Our little brag, we have the nation's first certified child support system, and we have the most innovative technology award as well. But we started working with, does everyone know about the Arkansas Department of Community Corrections? Okay, so the Arkansas Department of Community Corrections is actually right over here, and what they do is they're in charge of all parolees and probationers in the state of Arkansas. Now, ProTech, we do child support, but we also do a lot of data analytics, and when, our main goal is let's make sure that the children that are owed child support are getting that child support. So when we looked at why a lot of children weren't meeting those high collection numbers, we saw that there was a huge overlap between those that are not paying and those that are incarcerated. And that makes a lot of sense because when you're in prison, you can't pay child support. So we started talking to ACC in early 2014. We said, how can we get these ex-offenders to a place where they're able to pay that child support? Because it can't be the case that every single one of these ex-offenders is a negligent parent who just doesn't want to pay, right? So when we started talking about it, we actually saw that there were a lot of obstacles that they have to overcome in order to be able to pay that child support. So a little bit about ACC, they're right over here. There are about 55,000 people in the state of Arkansas that are on probation and parole, and another 20,000 that are actually incarcerated. So when we first started, we said, we want to get to know some of your people, we want to do need finding. This is a real narrative from a parolee in Conway. And just read through it really quickly because it really gives you context for the kind of problems they're facing. So I was a fast food cook and a cashier. Now I'm trying to pay child support on 2 children, barely have enough for food and rent, been late on rent 2 months in a row, afraid I'll get kicked out, need more money and a better job, don't have a car, this is the closest job to me. On top of everything else, got diagnosed with diabetes, it's going to be another huge expense. I'm a hard worker, just need a new start in life for myself and my children. And this is actually relatively tame. Sometimes we have people come to us that are actually $10,000, $15,000 behind in fines and fees, and there's just a lot of stuff. So, people like us, we can look at something like this and say, okay, well, they need money, employment, health, housing, food, and maybe for housing, I know to refer them to some place. For employment, maybe Goodwill is the right place. We all know of some certain service providers that are out there. But that leads us to the key idea behind Good Grid, which is there are lots of people in need. There are lots of services and organizations that are helping. So why is it that people are still slipping through the cracks? Also, just side note, how many, if you say 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, how many do you think that are released out of prison go back within 3 years? Any guesses? 50%. And what are some reasons why that's not good? Costs, right? It costs over $20,000 per year for these people, for a full year in prison. What are some other reasons? So one of the main reasons is it actually affects every single one of us, right? Because if people are coming back to the community and they're committing crimes and going back, that means we're not rehabilitating them and our communities are not safe, right? So anyways, so we saw 3 main gaps with what's happening today in terms of people needing help and getting help. The first one is with providers. We know there are a lot of providers out there, but we don't know who exactly they are, when are they open, who do they serve, who do they not serve. I don't know if you guys know, there are some resource directories that are passed around, like the Compassion Resource Directory, and these are good, but they're paper directories, and really they're the effort of lots of volunteers sitting together every year, spending hours and hours calling providers and saying, do you still provide this, do you still provide this, and then by the time it gets compiled and out to print, it's out of date. So that's a problem. The second thing is beneficiaries. When we first started this program, we got all the paper directories we could find, and we went to a facility in Pine Bluff, and we asked the residents there, can you key this all into Good Grid? And they were able to do it, but as they went on, we saw the same thing over and over, which was, they would say things like, this shelter is in Pocahontas, Arkansas, which I'm from Pocahontas, Arkansas, and I've never heard of this. And that was disturbing, right? Because if there's a provider and the actual person in need doesn't know about it, then it's not valuable anymore. So transparency was the second thing. The third is integrated support. So do you guys know about Arkansas 211? Okay, well 211 is a good program. It's a referral program. So you pick up your phone, you call 211. I think it was decommissioned in Central Arkansas, but it's still in Northwest. You call 211 and you say, hey, I need a homeless shelter. And they refer you to a homeless shelter. But then the interaction's over. You hang up and that's done. And like I said, that's a good first step, but we need a lot more because, for instance, if you're a caseworker, someone calls you and says, I need a homeless shelter, and you refer them to homeless shelter A. They might use their last couple of dollars on a bus pass to get all the way to homeless shelter A, and then they might say, well, sorry, we don't take sex offenders, or we don't take women whose children are of the opposite sex and above the age of 12. There are actual real restrictions like this. And It's very frustrating for the client, but it's also frustrating for the caseworker because they're calling you back and they're saying, why did you send me here? Why am I here? And if you don't have case management, then you have to say, who are you again? Where did I send you? Because you don't know. So with integrated support, when they call back, the first thing you'd say is, okay, Homeless Shelter A doesn't take sex offenders. Well, I'm going to update that in this statewide directory so that no other case manager in the state of Arkansas makes that mistake. The second thing I'll do is say, okay, John Doe, since I already know you, I know that you have diabetes, I know that you have 2 children, I know you need a house that has strong substance abuse treatment elements, then okay, I don't have to ask you for your entire story again. I know that A doesn't work, but B will work, so I'll send you over there. Does it make sense so far? Okay. So this is a use case of Good Grid. We have the person or family in need, and then we have the Good Grid over here. So you can access it through the computer. We also have a 24/7 support team, so you can call or email them. And then we're working on this concept of trusted service providers. And what that means is when someone walks out of prison, we already know, again, a lot about them. We know their health issues, we know how many children they have, we know what their skills are, whether they're employed or not. So if I walk out of prison and I walk into Goodwill, I shouldn't have to fill out a huge stack of intake forms again. But the reality is that's what's happening today. Every single provider they go to, they retell their entire story. What we want to be able to do is say, okay, I'm walking past Goodwill, I see the Good Grid logo on their door, so I know that when I go inside, if I authorize them to have my information, they'll have it. So once they log in, we'll get all of their demographics, record information, and then start their case notes and service requests, which I'll go through in a sec. So this is a snapshot of what we're doing in Arkansas right now. We talked a little bit about the provider directory and the case management, the call center. I'll go into detail on the job board because that's the biggest thing we're doing, which is why we want to meet employers. And it's important to know that, yeah, we are connected to EOMIS. EOMIS is the Electronic Offender Management Information System. So that's a system that both probation and parole and prisons use here in Arkansas. So what that means is every single day we have an interface, and so every one of those 55,000 that are out and those 21,000 that are in have a Good Grid account. Okay, back here. Everything on this is important, but the most important thing here is the service provider directory, because unless you have providers that have bought into this concept and that understand, collaborative case management, you don't have anyone to refer the cases to. So this is when we had to pivot. At the beginning we said it's all about the offender, let's focus on their needs. But here we had to say, well, you have to give something to a provider. You have to provide them value if you want them to be committed to the system. So we started looking at the kind of things that providers need. So right now they go on Facebook for community awareness, Volunteer Match to find volunteers, Eventbrite to publicize events, Idealist to find team members. So there are a lot of different websites that these providers go to meet their needs. What we're saying is we're going to give you all of these things in one place for free in exchange for being part of this collaborative case management system. So the sign up for a service provider is pretty simple. You put in your address, your timings, your locations, your mission, your logo, whether or not you're licensed. You can add different locations, you can add contacts for those locations, and then you end up with a page that looks something like this. And it's built off of the Facebook paradigm, so people are, there are no usability issues for the most part. People understand what's going on. So there's this news and updates tab where you have the same kind of Facebook news and updates. You have the about tab, which is all the information you just gave me about yourself. I'm making sure that that's out there. And then there's this services and locations tab, which to me is the most important part of this entire social network. I always give the example of Our House. I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, so I knew about Our House my entire life, and it's a homeless shelter, so done. But when you look at their page on the Good Grid, you see the expansiveness of the services that they actually provide. You click on housing, yes, They're a shelter, but you click on goods, they have a thrift store. You click on work, they have employment counseling. You click on education, they have after-school programs. So this is not only a way for providers to say, this is me, this is what I'm doing for our community, and connect to clients who are in need. It's also a way for them to connect to community members and say, do you understand what I'm doing, what I'm contributing to our community? And if you care, if you want to be a part of that, well, here are some ways you can be a part of that. So they can upload opportunities, which are full-time, part-time, volunteer, or even one-time opportunities. So, for instance, a church recently uploaded can someone come paint my fence? You know, and high school students were willing to do that as a volunteer opportunity. Or you can see events. So they might have a fundraiser 5K, they might have a fundraiser dinner. So you can see events specifically for one organization, or you can see all social impact events on the site. And these are all just examples of events that were posted on here. So a Running for Cover 5K by the Hot Springs County Homeless Coalition, Chocolate Fantasy Ball, Freedom for Life, Reentry Coalition. So for any of us here, if we're just free on a weekend and we want to give back, this is an easy way for you to, find out what's going on in the community and give back to it. There's also this activity feed, which again is a lot like a Facebook activity feed, but what makes it different are the kinds of people that are actually on this, right? So you'll have some people that are great with employment, some that are really good with housing, some that are really good with transportation. And it's a way for them to share resources, share events, all of that kind of stuff. And like I was saying before, we have a search directory. So after we got all the paper directories we could get our hands on, and after we scraped from the internet, there are about 15,000 services just in Arkansas itself. So anyone can access this, clients, case managers. You don't even have to have an account. Okay, so what I've shown you so far is for volunteers and service providers, but the actual clients see something a bit different. But is everyone good up till here? Any questions? Okay. So what the volunteers and service providers see is something called the social hub. But what the returning citizens see is called My Portfolio. And we call it My Portfolio because portfolios are used to manage things, and we want them to manage their reentry back into society. So they go to goodgrade.com/myportfolio. They log in with a prison ID that's given to them by corrections. And they have a pre-built resume before they ever get in. And that's, a standard job board feature. So before they ever log in, about 60 to 70% of their resume is complete. So we have a ladder, a crosswalk between their prison jobs and then real world jobs. So barracks porter would turn into janitor, for instance. But something that's special about this job board that came from the pilot as well, at the very beginning we'd have people come in and say, why should I do this resume? I'm not going to get the job anyhow. Well, we can actually now prioritize jobs that have been posted on here specifically for people with offenses. So we right now have about 60 jobs posted every week by employers here in Arkansas who are willing to give a chance to people with criminal background. So anyways, they can come on here, they can download their resume. So we give them some different styles, and their parole officer will print off 10 per week for them. We also have this thing, a letter of explanation. So this is really, really important because we've realized that our offenders actually have the skills to get a job. While they're inside, they have carpentry, plumbing, HVAC, welding. They have a lot of marketable skills, but they get all the way to the interview, and what happens is the interviewer says, I see you have a criminal background. Can you tell us a little bit about it? And then they'll say, terroristic threat of attack. Done. They don't want to explain it. They don't want to talk about it. And that sounds terrible. It sounds like you're going to blow up the Capitol, right? But in reality, you probably threatened your girlfriend. You did something like that. So this letter of explanation gives you 5 questions to answer. So what happened? Do you regret it? What could you have done differently? How have you improved? So it ends on that positive note. And whether the employer chooses to believe it or not, it's a lot better than that one-liner. Oh, and it also explains about work opportunity tax credits and federal bonding, which a lot of employers don't know about, but those are incentives to hire someone with a criminal background. Yeah, so it turns into something like this, and again, they can print it and hand it off, and some of them choose not to even give the employer the letter, but just to know how to talk about it when they get to the interview stage. Another thing to note, every one of them has a professional email on GoodGrid now, so first name dot last name at goodgrid.com, which has been helpful because sometimes they have very unprofessional emails that you don't want to put on a resume. But yeah, now, times have changed a lot. So even to get, a job at Tyson's Chicken Factory, to get a job at McDonald's, you have to now do online applications. So this is important for that. This is just a screen to show you that when people say there are not employers out there willing to give jobs to people with a criminal background, that's a myth. Really, the issue is transparency. You have to know someone that knows that they'll hire, but you can see there are pretty big names on here, Moe's, Riggs, Old Navy's, Cheddar's, they all are hiring ex-offenders. Okay, there's also this training module online. So most of our offenders are age 18 to 35, so they're kind of the Facebook generation and they know what's going on. But for the few that are not good with computers, this module has been really, really good for us. This has a technology module that goes as basic as what is a mouse, how do I put my hand on this, what is a left click, to as advanced as let's get your typing speed up. So that's been good. There's also Microsoft Office. It goes all the way up to 2016. So let's say you have some basic computer skills, but you want to get a receptionist job. You can come on here and learn something. So everything you've seen up till now is what's out there. It's available. This is something we're working on. So this is a freelancing module. And this, again, came out of the pilot. We realized that all the people we were meeting had a lot of skills, but doors were being shut for them, right? So actually, this came out of, we met this one woman who came out of prison, and she actually had a pastry chef background. Like, she went to school to be a pastry chef. And so when she came out, we thought if she could come on here and say, Debbie, I will make you a 6-layer cake for, $90 versus the market rate of $120. You would take me up on that because you're saving $30. And for me, I don't have that full-time income. So those short-term income bursts are really, really helpful. And what's maybe even more important is if you come on here and say, Nisha did a great job, highly recommend, strawberry cake was delicious. If I can get 5 or 6 of those and walk into a bakery, that's going to help me. Okay, so where we're at right now, all of our parolees, probationers, and everyone in prison now has an account. GoodGrid is now actually a course at our Officer Training Academy. So, it's been kind of hard to change the mindset because, the mindset is normally lock them up. So getting that reentry mindset has been probably the major barrier, but it's happening. And this 1,000 was in January, so now we're at 3,000 resumes that have been added and updated on GoodGrid. So it's growing pretty fast. How much time do we have left? Okay. So I'm going to wrap up really quick. So now you've seen the social hub, which is for volunteers and providers. You've seen the My Portfolio, which is for the people in need. This is how they connect. So this is the actual collaborative case management. So every one of our offenders come out and they'll go through something called a reentry planning wizard. So it says, you know best what kind of help you're going to need to be successful. What kind of help is that? So you might say housing or money, or maybe you pick every single one of these. Then for each one, we're asking for more details. So for health, for instance, we're saying, is it addiction and recovery, dental care, health education, help paying for assistive technology, and then there's categories, subcategories. So it can get pretty detailed. Then in the middle, we give them free form where they can write something very specific, like I have type 2 diabetes or I have glaucoma. And then based on that, we have a set of tasks for them. But what makes this task list special is it's not just, here are some things, go do them. It's, here are some things, and for every one of these tasks, here is a provider near you that will help you with this task. So on the provider side of it, for instance, let's say I'm Our House. I'm subscribing to a set of requests that I'm willing to help with. So I might say, yes, I can help with food. Yes, I'll do housing, but I don't do goods. I don't do transportation. I don't do health. So that way, if an offender goes on that reentry wizard and says, I need help with housing and food, and I've said I can help with food, they'll show up on my list of service requests. And at that point, I can either say, yes, I'm willing to help them, or no, I really don't have any extra food right now, but I can refer them over to Goodwill and say, I know Goodwill has food. So in that way, one request bounces around until it locks down on a set of providers, which is kind of what happens in reality, right? One person might be serviced by 5 different providers. But the problem is right now those 5 different providers don't talk to each other. So this system will allow them all to talk to each other. So they'll have a shared workspace for that client with an activity stream. So for instance, what happens right now is you might come out of Arkansas Community Correction having gone through a 3-month employment module, and then you'll walk into Goodwill and they see that you're unemployed, so they'll put you through an employment module again. But if the case manager at Goodwill could log on to their workspace and say, okay, well, they've been through that, so the best use of my resources is getting them interview clothing, getting them transportation, that would be a good way to collaborate. And of course, this comes with a lot of security, right? So you definitely don't want to show all information to all providers. But the way we get around that is we say all the information belongs to the client. And unless the client electronically approves transfer of information, no information will be sent to any service provider. And it can be, the system allows for it to be very granular. So you can say things like, I'm okay with this food pantry knowing my first name, but not my last name. So you can do it field by field. Okay, so that's the collaborative case management. And we talked about employment. Right now, a lot of different things are going on. For instance, with education, we have an online learning management system because right now, while you're in prison, it's kind of just luck of the draw. Like if you're at a certain facility, you get really good classes. If you're at a different one, you don't get access to the classes that you may really need. So this learning management system is allowing us to standardize and make sure everyone has access to the same classes. We also want external service providers to put their classes online because you've seen, a lot of different places. Some have really good financial literacy classes, some have other classes. So that's going to be education. Housing. You won't believe this, but now for transitional housing, it's actually snail mail. You write 50 applications, send them out to the houses, they respond with mail, then you respond back with mail. So it's very difficult. So this is something we're doing to make sure that it's an electronic online application. Money, that's something we're working on with Debbie at one bank. We're trying to get them all mobile banking accounts because right now they're walking around with $1,000, $2,000 in cash, getting mugged, and then it's all gone. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Any questions? Oh.
So yeah. So I have a mic. I'm going to hand it to you guys, and I'm going to let you pass it around. So if you would send that down, that would be great.
I don't need that.
Oh, you don't need that? Well, it's for the camera.
What is the recidivism from this?
What is the
Recidivism?
Well, this program just started in January of last year, so it's too soon to tell recidivism rates, but the recidivism rate at ACC right now is 56%.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you interact with the other prison ministries like prison fellowship who are really involved nationwide?
Right now, we're not interacting with prison fellowship.
It seems like there will be some synergy there.
Yeah, it does. Right now, all they do is they have pages on GoodGrid. So when an offender comes out and they're searching for resources, they find them. But yeah, there needs to be a lot more streamlining done. Okay. Yeah.
Could you hear me?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Stacy. I have a good friend who's in and out of prison all the time because of mental illness, and she's also homeless. So because of her low IQ, she would not be able to do any of this. This would completely overwhelm her. Are there people that can help someone navigate that whole system if they don't have the abilities to do it themselves?
Yes, yes. So we were talking about that 24/7 help desk. That's not only helpful for people who are not able to navigate, it's also helpful for sex offenders. A lot of them are not allowed to be on the computer, so we make sure that there's offline support for that. Yes.
Where's the funding coming from?
The funding is coming from ProTech Impact Foundation. So, that's the main thing right now. We're looking at, so right now, a lot of other states are wanting this system, so hopefully it'll be able to float itself. We shall see.
Her question also brought up for me my question, which is there are a number of people who, as all of us who work downtown know, who are homeless, who have a lot of the same needs. Has any thought being given, I know this is mainly a reentry program right now, but has any thought been given to expanding to try to offer them services because they have the same problems, they just cannot find where they need to go?
Right, yeah. We are looking at doing that too. Yeah, we've definitely had veterans come to us and say, well, we don't have a criminal background, and it doesn't feel good to say you can't do this. So we are talking with the VA right now, but I think, a push needs to be made to have a general sign up. The problem that we're having with that is, with ACC or with any other system, we have some ID and we have some way to keep track. When it's just a sign up, when the client just signs up themselves, it's going to be a lot more difficult. So we'll have to see how to get around that.
I think there were a couple more questions.
I'm sort of curious in terms of the prison population, about what percent of that do you actually expect to participate in this, as opposed to just the number?
Right now, let's see. On a daily basis, we have about 70 calls to our support team. And so far, like I said, we've got about 3,000 resumes total. So you can see, like, from January of last year to January of this year, there were only 1,000 resumes total. But from January up till May, there were another 2,000. So I think it's, the pace is definitely picking up. And now that parole officers are being trained, that's the main interaction they have. So I'm not exactly sure about what percentage I expect, but I know it's picking up.
And you'll turn anybody away.
Sorry?
You'll turn anybody away. You turn anybody away?
No, not right now, no.
Is it mobile enabled?
We don't have like a native mobile app, but yeah, it's available. It's responsive. Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else? No? Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. Let's give her some love. I'll take that too. Perfect. All right. Awesome. So this is the part where you think about who you know, right? Because in front of you, you have some little cards. They look a lot like that. And on the back, you're going to indicate who you know that Nisha and the Good Grid need to know. Maybe you have an idea about a volunteer. Maybe you have an idea about a service provider or an employer. I'm sure that they would love to meet those people, community decision makers. Can you stick around for a couple of minutes if they want to ask a question face to face? Great. So just fill out those cards, give them to any member of the Venture Center staff, because we track the connections that are made, and then we'll share that information back. Again, we don't need the personal contact information of your person. We just need to know that you want to introduce your friend Suzanne to the good people at the Good Grid. Right? So, okay, great. That's all for that. Start thinking about who you know. And then next week, some of you may have met our friends at Bootsy's Barbecue, but they were members of the Delta Regional Authority's Fellowship Program this past year. And so for the past 6 months, we've had the pleasure of working with Bootsy's Barbecue, amongst others. And we're really excited to host them next week. And I hear that there might also be a second presentation next week from a fintech company. So anyhow, so barbecue and banking, really what goes better together? right? So, okay, so that's all we have for today. Fill out those cards, hand them to me, Ashley, Jennifer, anybody who works at the Venture Center. We'll see you same time, same place next week. And for the love of all that is good and holy, eat the pastries and drink the coffee. Okay, thank you.